And there we go. We're live. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Wait.
I'm not even going to introduce this guy here. I mean, who else drinks Dr. Pepper and
every stream
and looks like a hippie other than me? So you all know Alex. I appreciate Alex you being here. This is so awesome. Oh, hold on 1 second. Usually I get some echo because it doesn't always stop for me. So I want to make sure this is good. We're good. Okay, it's all set. It's weird. A lot of times it doesn't start out good. All right. So just for anybody that's new, remember, we don't really look at the chat too much the whole first half of the show. Just to be Alex and I will be talking. I'm going to ask him some questions about who he is. And it's not fish related, really. I mean, sometimes we get into the fish hobby, but we're trying to learn more about Alex as a person instead of just a fish keeper, right? So
I'm a real person.
Yeah. And I see all the regular people, so I think everybody's pretty familiar with our format that we have. So I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes here because I think we'll get more people coming in. And I'm just going to do a quick hi to just a few of the people, especially like Big M Riddle. Always good to see my buddy. And I know he's a mod on your channel too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Awesome dude. Awesome mod. Yeah, for sure.
Very knowledgeable too. And I keep him. He's not ready, but he said at some point. So that,
I see Chevy too.
Yeah. And that's, Chevy Fish. I don't know if you watched last night's stream with Ed and I doing our geek thing.
But, I missed it, but I love both of you guys. So
we talked about Chevy. So Chevy, you need to go back and look at that because we talked about you in there. If you weren't watching, really appreciate having Chevy Fish around. She's one of the awesome people too. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to go through the whole chat and say hi to everybody because that takes forever. And
I'll say hi. Yeah, I'll say hi to Muppet real quick too, just because she's another one of my mods. So.
And she is also awesome. I always spell her name like Mupperoni or and I'm running out of different alternatives to use for her name. So, all right, Alex, again, I think this is the 52nd time I said thank you. But thank you so much for coming up. I really appreciate you coming on and let me interviewing you. It's awesome. And I'm sure the mods are going to be throwing your links up in there. So for people who don't know, Alex has a channel that is incredibly informative. You obviously have a degree. You can just tell. What do you have a degree in? Is it anthropology or archaeology, something like that?
Yeah, I have. I guess technically speaking, I have 3 degrees. So I have archaeology, but before getting that, I had a history of the Middle East and Northern Africa degree, and then I also had a anthropology, cultural anthropology, which was on the Coast Salish tribal people of my local area, basically where I grew up, the West Coast, from mid Washington up into Vancouver, BC, and the San Juan Islands and Vancouver Island. So
very cool, very cool. And when was the last time you were in school?
I guess 2008. I guess 2009.
Not really that long.
Yeah, that's when I finished my archaeology stuff. I didn't get into archaeology long enough as far as schooling. I didn't get a PhD, so I didn't end up specializing, as they'd say.
Yeah.
But the really fun thing about archaeology and I guess the handy thing is that they make you study a lot of, there's a lot, like if you look at how many classes you have to take for your average degree, it's a lot for archaeology because you have to do biology, anatomy, geology, meteorology, biochemistry, chemistry. So you have to kind of like cover a lot of ground just because of kind of the act of what you're doing, and how you're assessing, soil, and you need to know the geological processes, the meteorological and weathering and aging and processes, and then down to If you're doing obviously human stuff, then that rather than paleontology or some other facet, then you need to know the biology of that. But then if you specialize in something, now with a lot of the aging and dating processes, you need to know a lot about, at least I feel like the college in general, the thing that I say, you know, I don't think everyone should go necessarily, or has to go obviously, but I do think that it teaches you to learn. It teaches you to figure out, if you want to know something, it teaches you how you can learn that or acquire that information.
Yeah.
And so that was what archaeology, a lot of it was, you know, I don't know how the grinding pattern of if you were eating mongongo nuts in southern Africa as your primary you know, starch in your diet or whatever. I don't know what your molars would look like after a lifetime of that, but somebody does. There's a paper on it, and I'll have to figure it out and figure out if those teeth, you know, if the marks on the teeth were from that, or from bone, or from, you know, holding hides and scraping them or whatnot. So it definitely, there's a lot of little puzzles to figure out in that degree or that field. And I always liked that. But that being said, I never did it for money. I was an intern and apprentice at sites essentially, and did it free for a few summers. And then the entire economy collapsed right when I finished everything and was looking for a job. And I was living in a hippie commune, basically. There's not really any other way to put it, but I was living with 27 other people with animals and stuff right next to the Canadian border in Washington, in a town called Bellingham. And it's a fishing town and a real outdoorsy town. And it's half super liberal, half super right wing, but it's all the people love the land, you know what I mean? And hunting and gathering and using the outdoors and stuff. So it was a cool spot to be in, but I got into tattooing just to pay the bills, just because I didn't want to leave that town right when I graduated. There was no jobs to be had per se. And I'd been tattooing for a couple years of college. And so that kind of afforded me the money to stay up there, and
gotcha.
Kind of an interesting lifestyle, honestly. So.
Yeah, very different. And for people who don't know, and I'm sure like Big M or somebody will throw the links up, Alex has some amazing artwork too, and he's done some different things. LRB, you did a poster or something for. Who else have you done different commissions or something for within the fish fam?
Cahaba Fish, Fish Rooms, Father Fish I did some stuff for at first with Mary, and then why am I spacing on her name? She helped Mary in the mornings. Her and I worked on some shirts for a few different things for a few different people's channels. And then I'm working with Chubbs right now. Nice. Chubbs Aquatic. Okay. Yep. And then let's see who else. If you go way back, Flip Aquatics and Rob. And so there's. I remember looking in the folder. There's about 14 different logos or merch things I've done for Fish Fam in general. So there's been a group of them. But
are you open to commissions now? You said you were doing something with Chubbs, or do you do it more with people that you know a little bit better? Are you, wide open for commissions?
I hate to say it like this, but if the money's right, yes, okay. Of course. But otherwise, it's just kind of about how busy I am. You know, gotcha. Like if I have the time, like right now with Chubbs, like he wasn't like I need it right this second, and so it kind of worked out that like I'm just gonna kind of do it as a in a trade for some plants and fish kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
I really like bartering in general in my life, like whatever it is, like if I'm working on a graphic design thing. So like I have if my car breaks down, if my sink breaks, whatever, like I'll do like a website or, you know, flyers for the local plumber or whatever. If someone's up for the trade, I'm up for, hey, just put me on your credit board. Yeah. And sometimes it drives my wife insane, but then, you know, something will happen, like we'll get a leak in the roof, and I had a roofer friend, you know, that I'd done layout work on his website for. And she was like, oh, wow, that's awesome that you have that. So
yeah, so now she likes it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you know, that's one way to avoid just taxes kind of, but it's also because honestly, I don't like funding. Specifically, I started doing that consciously because I didn't want to fund the wars when the Iraq and Afghanistan war were going on. But there's just a lot of things I don't particularly want. Like, I mean, I'm sure everyone has things they don't want to fund through their taxes. But I mean, when you're self-employed, as I've been my entire adult life, at least half my income's been self-employed, is, you know, you give up to like 30% to the government. And so you start to think about it, I feel like, a little bit more than when it just comes out of your paycheck off the top.
Yeah,
you know, when you have to sit there and do it.
A bigger chunk, because your employer is usually paying half of that tax. But, when you're on your own and you are the employer, then yeah, you're doing both of it.
Yeah.
So, what do you do right now for a living then? Do you have like a standard type job, or are you just really, is it YouTube and commissions and things like that right now?
Yeah,
that's sort of a cool life. I mean, it's a little more stressful, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, it's really laid back in some ways, and in other ways, like there's days that are like, oh man, I got a lot to do.
Yeah.
But no, right now, I'm doing YouTube, which honestly, like I've been making $1,000 or $2,000 a month off that, like depending on super chats and Patreon and all that, and so that's enough that like that with my wife is like, okay, I can contribute to the rent and utilities with that chunk, you know, or whatever it may be. And then I usually have about that much coming in to try to cover my medical bills and then fish bills. But I really am a pretty frugal person in that, like, don't have a new car, don't have new, you know, I don't buy new stuff unless it's utilitarian pretty much.
Yeah.
Other than fish and sometimes music stuff. Like, you know, I like, you know, a good sound system or whatever, but
and that's another little tidbit there. One thing I really enjoy about your streams is somebody will type a phrase out in the chat and it'll trigger a song, and you'll sing a couple bars of, you know, a song or something. And I usually know all the songs too. So I like that little quirk of your personality. You see something and all of a sudden you start singing, you know, that part of it. That's funny.
Yeah. You know, before, so I had a big accident where I got struck by lightning.
Yes.
And that was a bad brain injury. And honestly, like they told me I might not ever work again. They told me I might not walk again for a while when that was happening. And it was a lot of unknowns it was a very weird thing. But, I mean, during that, my brain changed a little bit. And before that, I had what you'd call, I mean, it's debatable whether it's a real thing, but like photographic memory. But regardless, I mean, I could recall like every word to every song that I've heard more than, you know, if I've heard it 2 or 3 times, I would know all the words. Yeah. And that's not the case anymore. I mean, I'd still say that things work okay, surprisingly. But for specifically music, like, I can, you know, within a bar of a song, I can, you know, name that tune kind of thing. And I'm just a huge music lover. Like if I don't have some like podcast or audio book or, you know, like YouTube channel on in the background at home, I have music playing, you know. So
same here. There's always music going in the house somewhere. We listen to a lot of different stuff. And I have adult children. They still live at home. My daughter is just about 24 in just a couple of weeks. What is the date today? Oh, in 9 days. And nice. Son, who's 19. So they sort of keep me up to date on some of the music. You know, it helps me stay in touch with some stuff. But we always have music playing somewhere.
What are they into? Just curious, what kind of music are they into? Are they both?
My son he likes the same kind of stuff I do, mostly classic rock, a lot of progressive rock. That's about it. My daughter has very broad, likes and everything, and she's very musical. She can sing very well. She plays the ukulele and the guitar.
Oh, cool.
She's just very musical. So she really has a very wide, spectrum of music that she likes. But my son is mostly, a lot of the older stuff, and I like all kinds of stuff too. But we share, classic rock is, because that's what I listened to when I grew up. Although it wasn't classic rock then, it was just
right.
when you get old, then everything becomes classic. How long ago was the lightning strike?
That was 2018, and it was in June 26th.
Wow. Not that long ago.
Yeah, and it was odd. Like the night it happened, my brain was fine. Like my memory, I was very startled, very rattled, but everything was fine. I could walk. I could, use my hands. It was a week and a half after the fact that I started losing my coordination and dropping things and having seizures. That I actually started having severe, neurological issues from it. I had burns, and it knocked out 14 teeth, I think is the total now. Man. But it cracked basically all my teeth, and I was supposed to get dentures. Like I was supposed to have the rest of these teeth pulled out and get like implant denture type things. But one, that's super expensive, even with it being an accident and everything. They consider it cosmetic, which is just like, what? Like
teeth aren't cosmetic.
Yeah, exactly. But in our country, dental is kind of its own thing, and so unless it had screwed up the structural integrity of my jaw, basically, they're like, yeah, it's a cosmetic thing. So we'll pay for the extractions if you want to pull them all out. And then we'll pay for 20% of the most basic type of denture. But if I wanted to do any sort of implant, long term, or like saving your gum tissue and bone tissue that you lose after you extract teeth. So you don't get the sunken in look. All that, none of it's covered. So I kind of put it on hold. But now I've only got 2 spots to chew on in my mouth, and I feel like I look like a hillbilly, but not that I'm that whatever. I'm not that sensitive about how I look, but
but still,
as you can probably tell, because I'm so put together all the time.
Well, I did know you went through that just recently too, where one of them got infected. Because of the split, and you were actually at sepsis and were actually in the hospital for it.
That was
like a month ago or so, right?
It was January. I mean, so it was a little longer, but I mean, that was scary. Like it went from a little bit of a sore tooth to in 12 hours, 104 fever, and just feeling terrible. And I went in, and my whole jaw had swollen up. My lymph nodes are all swollen, and they thought it was just going to be a tooth thing, but it was actually in a tooth socket that the tooth had already been extracted, and so it was in the bone, and that pain was actually like nerves farther down in my face, so the infection had spread that much through the bone already. So
that's scary stuff. It's amazing how much their teeth are connected, and people have died from infected teeth. It's
well.
Let me interrupt you real quick, just because a bunch more people came in. Hey everybody, thanks everybody for being here. Just want to remind you, or if you're new here, thanks for coming over, but we don't really look at the chat for the first half hour or so. But after the first half hour, then we'll look at the chat and we'll take questions for Alex. So if you got some questions, save them for then, and we'll dig into some stuff there. So anyway, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, no problem. The other thing I was going to say is with what was I saying? I was going to say something about the teeth. The infection. Being an archaeologist, humans somewhere like in around the time sugar was introduced to the world, like in the sense of sugar cane and stuff, and processed sugar. When you see it hitting Europe, so around like the 1510 or so, when the New World kind of opens up, really. And then also India starts getting colonized and Africa starts growing it too. But you see that at the high point, almost 1 in 5 people were dying of tooth-related infections or illness, because there are no antibiotics or anything.
Yeah.
You know? And so you'd walk around with 10 different infections in your mouth, you know, a lot of times. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But if you're a wild human, you know, humans for the first 500,000 years of our existence, it's somewhere around 5% of humans died from tooth-related illness, you know, naturally. So yeah. it was we used our teeth a lot more too for, you know, holding hides or holding, you know, reeds or whatever while you're weaving or doing things. And so not just did you die, you became less useful without them. So we don't necessarily think about it, but they were almost like a fifth appendage. I mean, you don't think about using your feet as much too, but if you look at a lot of indigenous cultures, they use their feet to tie, you know, fabric or you know, sinew or whatever. Like they'll anchor it with their feet or whatnot too. So or, you know, climbing palm trees, for instance, you put a strap around your feet and shimmy up the tree. Like, so we don't always think of it, but, you know, the majority that we're animals, and the majority of the time that we've been around, we've used things a certain way. And just because we don't now, it's interesting too, just like how your like nightmares and weird thoughts, like teeth nightmares are very, very common, and fear of the dentist, very, very common. And so it's just kind of interesting to me that, I think it goes back to something primal, like that kind of like, I don't want to be the useless one in the tribe that, you know, can't chew or whatever, you know,
expelled too from the tribe, or gets
voted off the island.
Yeah. And it's interesting about the sugar too, you know, that
cheers.
When that really got when that
at this point I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, what's gonna happen now? But you know, it's amazing that you know, sugar really did, you know, do that much of did that much damage to us, you know. We know it's bad for us, but yet I'm guilty of it too. I've got a sweet tooth massively. I think most people do. We don't think about how bad it really is for us. So. Yeah,
and you know, the other thing, I'm gonna grab a charger too real quick. My phone for some reason has been losing like 1% every 2 minutes. Sometimes it does that, so I just want to make sure it doesn't. It's at 35%, but I don't want to let it.
It's all the sexiness on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Draining the battery, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting too about the there's a lot of things in human history that it's amazing, like how it changed things, and you know, that's part of like that kind of trivia and stuff is what I've always I found relatable or interesting about history frequently. But I also, you know, the other part of it, I guess, that I find, hold on one sec, let me see. Sure. I'm trying to switch. I'll probably might lose you for 1 sec, and then
okay, no problem.
Hold on.
Science gal, Carrie, I just saw that. I hope your son is okay. I'm scrolling way up. He visited the dentist and fell on the playground, chipped his 2 front teeth. Hopefully it's not too bad, Carrie.
Oh yeah, that's no good.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Yeah, I'm with you that those types of things are interesting. Even when I read like fiction and stuff, or nonfiction, whatever. When I'm reading a book, and they start talking about. You know, it's way in the future. You know, it's dystopian future.
Yeah.
You know, like Planet of the Apes is the most famous one, where you see the Statue of Liberty in the sand. You know,
sure.
Just those types of things are fascinating to me, to see how things changed and how they use stuff in the future that we like cell phones. What are they going to think about what's left of the cell phone? You know, if
I
we
know.
do go into dystopian type future, you know, are they going to be used as some type of utensil or something? You know, the glass from them, or you know, all that stuff is just incredibly interesting to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, with my channel, the other thing that I wanted to do was, if I were locked in, it kind of came from a thought experiment, which was like, if I were locked in a goldfish bowl or locked in a aquarium, whatever, what were the things I'd start thinking about would be, and then it'd be like, okay, well, where did the glass come from that makes the walls? Okay, what country is that? Well, what happens if a trade embargo happens with them? Does glass go up in aquariums? And then it went from, okay, well, we got a new fish. Where did the puffer come from? You know, why is it $200 or $300 and other fish are $3 or $4? You know, oh, there's a conflict going on in the Congo. Who invented glass? You know, like, so those things. And I had to kind of just walk it back from, okay, I don't need to do like who invented glass on the aquarium channel, but you know, once it starts interfacing with the aquarium, that's kind of where like I'm trying to draw the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I like to do that with everything in my life, not just aquarium stuff, but
You analyze pretty much everything and think about its beginnings and everything, and it comes through on your channel because you do have a very, very informative channel. You know, even when you're going through some of the old tropical fish hobbyist magazines and stuff, and you talk about you don't just show us an article, you talk about the article and what's changed and what's different, and you know, just the information that you get out of your channel is it's priceless. It really is.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, learning is the biggest hit of dopamine, you know, the biggest rush for me, honestly. And I know that's not true for everyone, or maybe it is for certain things they learn. But like for me, that's my goal every day, is to find out some interesting fact or story of how something works or how something came to be. And really, like when I was in college, I was so bummed to have to stop. And I'm not really, I mean, I'm not really ashamed to say it or anything, but I was actually selling pot to the medical side of things as it was in this gray area in Washington, to put myself through college so that I could go finish the archaeology thing. And so like, I mean, between that and tattooing, and then I did work other jobs too, but I mean, I was doing all these things and it was so I could keep going to school. And then when I finished school, I actually, when I still lived near the university, I'd go what they call audit classes, and I'd go sit in on. So, I mean, there's a bunch of things that I didn't study whatsoever, but, you know, maybe I sat in on 80% of the classes in some random class that has nothing to do with anything in my life, you know. So,
but you still picked up that knowledge. And
yeah, like industrial design is something that I'm always fascinated by, because when it comes down to it, it's really the same thing that archaeologists do, but just on a modern, you know, utilitarian scale. But you know, somebody, if you go back far enough, had to figure out, well, what's the best way to make a spear or throw a spear or make a scraping blade or a hand axe or something, you know.
Yeah.
So,
you talked about liking, you know, you love to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But you also said that the lightning strike did affect that. Now, I mean, today, do you still have any issues with remembering or learning new things? Is it still affecting you?
Yeah. When I get tired, one, I get tired pretty easily, and two, I get when I do get tired, I go downhill very quickly. In my stamina and in like my retention ability, almost to the point where it's like a haze, like until I go rest.
Brain fog.
Yeah. So it turns into like my wife, if she calls or if we talk about something, now I mean, it's been long enough now that she knows like, oh, he's not going to remember that probably, so she'll just tell me again, you know. But
does that have anything to do also with your autoimmune disease that you have? Does that play into that as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know. Definitely the energy thing, because I do have lupus, and they thought it was rheumatoid arthritis for a long time, and then they're like, well, maybe it's a really severe case of psoriatic arthritis. And you know, I bounced around. I probably saw, and I'm not kidding, in 10 years I probably saw 50 probably different specialists and doctors for either a test or a diagnosis, all over multiple states even. And I was in several studies because my inflammation response and my IgE, IgM, for anybody who's interested in that stuff, markers are among like the top 3 highest ever recorded.
Wow.
And so it's basically the little cells that tell your body. You've got some cells in your immune system that say, hey, what's going on? Okay, you're normal, you're an invader. And then you've got other cells that are the ones that actually come and attack.
Yeah.
And then you've got some that basically just mark things and say, like, this is an issue. And so the other cells passing, if they see that cell on it, they'll say, okay. So the ones that I have are the ones that mark things, and say this is an issue. And that can also manifest in like severe allergies, but they're not true allergies in the sense that they're not continuous. They're called cross reactivity. And so it took a long time to figure this out, and it's actually really new science. But they found that people, and this was known in some traditional cultures, which I find interesting, you know, like I guess Western, pre-Enlightenment, we'll say.
Okay.
But like if you're allergic to alder trees, you're probably going to have an issue with raw carrots. If you cook the carrots, you'll probably be okay. But if you're really allergic to birch, there's a good chance you'll have cherry allergies. So there's these compounds or molecules basically that are just so similarly shaped, even though they're totally different things, that they fit in the same receptors, or the same markers dock with them the same way.
Gotcha.
So when people tend to be allergic to them, now they're finding that it may only be a few months out of the year, but once your system has already used up those markers kind of, and you have a marker that can say this thing's bad, and then you can have another marker that says never mind, ignore the first marker.
Yeah.
But you can only produce those so quickly. And so if you don't have enough of those, then your body starts saying this thing's bad, and no, this thing's actually okay, don't worry about it, marker comes along. Then you start getting inflammation, swelling, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, learning about all that too, not that I necessarily wanted to, but it does inform, you know, just understanding the process biology and in the fish world too, you know. So
because we have that in common, because I do have rheumatoid arthritis, and so
okay.
I don't know if you've heard of Sjogren's. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I have both of those.
I'm sorry.
It's been about 15 years now, and
yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do? I have some bad days and I have good days, but
yeah.
It's just something we have in common, though.
Yeah.
We both have that, and it's not a fun life. You know, I've talked about it. I've been pretty upfront about it in my other streams and stuff. You know, a lot of times I don't like to go places because I have trouble walking. A lot of times I have to use a cane. And I'm embarrassed. I'm just embarrassed of, you know, people zipping by me, because that used to be me. And I'm older, but still, I'm still feel like I should be pretty spry, and I'm not.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get onto that.
No, please. I don't know. Not that I'm in a hurry or anything either.
I want to give a quick shout out to somebody who I just saw in the chat real quick. Kelly Foreman is here. I think Kelly Foreman is in your channel too quite often, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Kelly, just out of the blue the other day, sent me a message on Instagram and said, hey, you want some plants? She sent out a package today of plants just out of the blue. Wouldn't let me pay for shipping or anything. So,
nice.
Kelly Foreman, that was very cool of you, and I really do appreciate you sending me those plants. So, you're awesome.
Yeah, that's rad.
So, when did they finally nail it down that it was lupus? I mean, how long did it take from when you first?
Well, and now, there's actually about 8 types of lupus, give or take. It's still kind of changing. But luckily I'm at near University of Washington, and they're one of the most advanced, places for it. Luckily Seattle is just like, medical city. It's kind of like, Boston or something, or it's just a big city for a lot. Like, we have 2 level 5 trauma units. I think it's level 5. Is that how that works? It's either level 5 or level 1. But the whole point is that people come either to LA or here. Like, if it's a big, trauma, like in Montana, even they'll helicopter them over here, like a long ongoing burn victim or whatever. And I think there's only like 7 cities in the US that have even one of those hospitals.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
yeah. Like John Hopkins is one. The Mayo Clinic is another,
the big ones.
Yeah, the big ones. But yeah, so they figured it out probably, I'm trying to think what year that would be. Probably 8 years ago or so. It started acting up when I was in college. In college or high school, I was really, really wild. College, I was pretty wild. But I was into drugs and alcohol, and so it was kind of hard to say, like, if I was in pain, honestly. Like,
gotcha.
I went to class and everything, but there was a good chance that I was smoking a joint on the way there and taking a handful of some pills, and so it was kind of a mess. I went and did all my things, and that that was another thing about the aquarium hobby, was like it really did save my life in some ways. Nature has, because I've always loved nature. Even when I was in the worst, like, kind of junkie type addiction, I still would go out into nature and, drop everything and just be like, I want to go sit by a river or whatever. But I was always the kind of person who, whether it was drinking or whatever, I would drink a whole 5th and then go out, And so when it came to parties and stuff, it was like, whatever people had, I would take. Sure. And it was like I was trying to escape kind of I had a lot of pain, but I had a lot of anxiety too. Like I've always had social anxiety, and I discovered alcohol at the age of like 13, like is when I started drinking a lot. Like 13 or 14. By the time I was 14, I was drinking every day, and it totally cured my social anxiety. And even when I wasn't drinking, like it actually probably made me dumb or something, like slowed everything down.
Yeah.
But I quit all that when I turned 21. I quit drinking, and then I quit everything else within the next few years after that. I quit everything else fully too. But the reason I had to quit was not necessarily like, it wasn't like I ever owed money or needed money or was like, like that kind of an abuser. But I realized that I was gonna just die, or the people around me were not good. I had out of my class of best friends growing up, there were about 10 of us in high school that were kind of a group that hung out together, and there's only 3 of us left, and one's like, a rehab, like he does counseling, and then 2 of them are, they're just whatever, I'd say normal, but we've had 6 deaths out of that group.
Wow.
And 4 were overdoses. One was a car crash due to alcohol, and then the other one was suicide. So it was a kind of destructive lifestyle, but it really, the going out and partying every night, and then waking up, going to school, like just burning the candle at both ends for years and years. I don't know. I guess that's kind of an unusual story in that I didn't ever have like, oh, I crashed my car, or oh, I got arrested. There wasn't ever anything like that. It was just like, holy cow, like I'm sure I'm shredding my body, you know, like, but ironically, so I quit. And within a year or two of quitting is when I learn all these things are wrong with my body. And I'm like, is it because I was doing that? And they're like, actually, no, it has nothing to do with that. Like, it's just genetic. Like,
masked all the symptoms and stuff, though. And
yeah,
like,
exactly.
had pain, so you weren't feeling any pain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So look for those ways to get rid of it. And maybe that was part of what pushed you to it, too, a little bit. You said
totally,
anxiety, but maybe trying to get rid of. I understand about the pain and wanting to get rid of that. That's a constant.
Yeah. Companion. Well, for me, that was the main, like, I'd call it, you know, addiction. Like I did psychedelics. Yeah, I smoked pot, blah blah blah. But I think a lot of people in college try that stuff. But I actually it was pain medicine that first got me. I broke my back when I was 16. Jesus. Broke my spine. Yeah. and back then, though, it was like, here's some Oxycontin. Yeah. And so they gave a 16-year-old kid, like, I don't know, 100 Oxycontin a month or whatever. And so at the time, you know, I had that, and I was like, I have no anxiety, I have no pain, like, this is a miracle, you know. But you learn otherwise pretty quickly after that. Yeah. So yeah, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there too, of like, you know, being into science, being into all that stuff. I would, you know, obsess over like, okay, what proteins or what enzymes are being used to metabolize this, and what's the most effective bioavailability you can get out of this substance. And all the, you know, like, you know, a lot of chemistry and stuff. And yeah, you're damaging yourself, you know what I mean, at the same time with some of it. You know, other stuff people make a big deal out of, and it's not that bad. But yeah, so it's just, yeah,
I need the vitamin C, you know, with LSD. That was a thing. That's as far as we ever got into it. I didn't know any chemistry or anything, but we were always told that the vitamin C was going to help it. So yeah, always you basically overdose on vitamin C to go with it.
Yeah, I remember people doing that in college too, high school and college. Yeah. And I mean, I was the one helping make it, so that was kind of where I was at.
Wow, no, I didn't get that involved. Did you? You seem like the kind of guy, and where you live and everything. Were you big into the Grateful Dead or anything? Were you?
You know, like, I love the Grateful Dead. They weren't that big here, though. I mean, really? Honestly, in Seattle's kind of an island, in that it's 900 miles to San Francisco. And that's really the next big multicultural city. I mean, you can go to Montana or North Dakota, you can go to Idaho or Utah, but I mean, no offense to them, but they're not really like cultural hubs of the world. Yeah. They're fine places, but you know, more outdoorsy and stuff. But so yeah, you either go there or LA. And Vancouver, BC is actually a pretty big city, though. Yeah. And so I did go up to Vancouver, BC growing up a lot as a teenager and in my early 20s. And it's, you know, 2 million people in the metro area, and it's a very dense European style metro area that a lot of Canada doesn't feel like that. A lot of the US doesn't feel like that, but it feels kind of like going to England or I mean, going to London or Paris or, you know, Berlin or a city like that almost. Yeah. It's very planned out too. And mass transit, you know, kind of, they say they have they're like, oh, we have no system, but compared to most US cities, it's very efficient. But again, they have a terrible, terrible drug problem in Vancouver. Their east side is like notorious worldwide as being probably like right up there with, you know, Baltimore, New Orleans, and Detroit.
It's like, interesting too, because they decriminalized a lot of the stuff, right? But there's been other places like Portugal who did the same thing, decriminalized. But so why? I'm always curious why the difference between like Portugal and Vancouver as far as addiction rates and things like that.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because that's part of what I did my anthropology degree on was my teacher. I confided in her that I was addicted to Oxycontin when I was like 19. And Oh, are you still there? Or is you? Uh-oh, it's just me. He lost his connection. He'll be back, I'm sure. I might get booted too.
Oh, that's
there we go.
One. No, that's the bad one. Hold on.
Okay, no worries.
What happened?
I don't know. I think you went back in time, like 1920s, maybe. You're black and white.
Oh, look at that. There we go. Okay. Well, that was weird. That's the first time that's happened. You got to see my belly.
I know you're the greatest papa ever. Or whatever that shirt says.
I think that is what it says. Yep, world's greatest papa. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
My kids gave it to me, so it's real.
Yeah, there you go. That's some currency there. But yeah, I mean, I studied, I confided in my teacher that like, yeah, I have this addiction. And she was native, like indigenous to the tribe outside of Bellingham, the town that I lived in for college. And she said, you know what? I wouldn't normally do this. There's some conflicts of interest, but I'm going to set you up with my cousin, and I want you to write a paper, like not for your thesis or anything at first, but she's like, I want you to write a paper about what it's doing on the reservation, you know? And so she set me up with her cousin who was really bad off, like, you know, shooting it up and stuff like that. Yeah. They had an average life expectancy, you know, I think it was the New York Times did an article on the Lummi Indian Reservation, and they had a life expectancy for males of 38 years.
Wow.
Because of drug and car accidents and suicide and murder on this reservation of about 7,000 people. But yeah, it's right on the Canadian border, and they were responsible, well, people working with them, like the Hells Angels and some other groups were bringing drugs across because they had tribal rights to go to Canada, where before treaties were signed, before the border was established, the treaty was signed. And so half their tribe lives in Canada and half of it lives in the US, but they're allowed to go back and forth, and they weren't supposed to be searched until very recently, you know, in their cultural artifacts. But it turned out that a few bad actors were smuggling, you know, massive amounts of pharmaceuticals and other things. So it became that spot was just torn apart, in that their pay for helping out was, you guys can keep a third of it or whatever, you know, rather than cash. But yeah, so I did my thesis on Oxycontin and the Coast Salish people and reservation life, but how my paper was actually on how when they changed the formulation of Oxycontin so that it was quote unquote abuse proof, that we were going to see a rise in heroin. And that was my thought, my idea. I didn't think about the fentanyl issue that happened, but that is what happened, I guess, you know, and it was known. I mean, it was known by a lot of people in the community that would happen. But it made it from a bad issue to a just catastrophic issue.
Pandemic.
Yeah. So,
what you're describing about that Indian reservation, I believe that Neil Stevenson talks about that in one of his books. I can't remember which one. Do you like sci-fi really that much?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Neil Stevenson, I think he talked about that in one of his later books. There was a guy who lived right on the other side of the border, and he had to smuggle some stuff across and stuff, and he dealt with that Indian tribe, I'm pretty sure. When you were talking about it, just reminded me. And I'm drawing a blank on which book it was, but it's one of his recent ones. Anyway, okay. Just a little aside there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a weird tidbit, but I figured, like, I haven't really talked about this with a ton of people, you know, on the channel and stuff. I've mentioned these things in passing. If you've watched a long time, you might have picked up some of this.
Yeah.
I've mentioned that I've been sober for going on 13 years, I guess. And I say sober, but I mean, yeah, when I was in the hospital in January, they put me on morphine. I'm not going to count that as, you know, whatever. I wasn't, you know, using it to escape anything. And I do have to say that I am a proponent of psilocybe mushrooms, honestly. For I had cluster headaches in college, and not that I
really take them anymore or anything. And it's not because of, legal reasons. Like, they decriminalized it basically in Seattle now. And then they totally decriminalized it in Oregon up here. But yeah, I mean, I had cluster headaches that were debilitating in college, where I'd get the white blinding haze and migraines, and I'd throw up. And they tried all these different medications for, I had it since I was 15. And when I was 19, I think it was, I tried a large dose of mushrooms, and I got one of those headaches, and it was starting as I was also under the influence. But after that, it went away. And then not even 2 years afterwards, the Dutch wrote this extensive study on how cluster headaches and migraines can be treated by psilocin and psilocybin pretty effectively, as can addiction, which is interesting. So I don't know. My thought on it is just, I just don't count it out. I'm not pro or anti it necessarily. I don't want to tell anybody to go do something.
Sure.
They need to make their own choices. But but yeah, I've always been very like interested and open to that. And I've always really, really liked you were talking about sci-fi, but I've always loved like I don't know what you'd call it exactly, that type of sci-fi, but like do Android dream of Robot Sheep, and like Philip K. Dick, and like Gravity's Rainbow, and kind of I don't know, I guess you'd call them like psychedelic sci-fi or something. So I would say psychedelics culture, even if they themselves haven't influenced me, like the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour, White Album, Sgt. Pepper, like that era, like I like that era, Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane and Jimi Hendrix, I like that stuff. So it's interesting to me that it's like a theme, like even just as a kid, like ancient stuff that I liked, like the ancient really elaborate Muslim mosaic like patterns, the geometric patterns you see in mosques and things. Again, that or Navajo stuff. A lot of that is from vision questing and things like that. And so I don't know. I find it kind of interesting that there's some underlying like thing in the human experience that I think that music and art and math and nature kind of all overlap, and we kind of like, we all have a different frequency, and we kind of overlap and match up at times. And so, I kind of find that interesting.
And we're reaching out for something, something outside of the body, something, some people are, want to call it religion or whatever, but we're reaching out for that something that's outside of us, I think that's why all that stuff is tied in together like that, because I get the same feeling while I used to going camping. And not nearly as strong, but as I would with some psychedelics. You get sort of the same, especially with mushrooms and stuff, because they're so natural feeling. I get almost the same type of feeling from that, just the communing with nature.
And I mean, I find it really interesting that I would take people that I knew from my scene in the city, because also after college, so I was a tattoo artist with a heavy metal band, and I traveled with them. And
cool. That's cool.
I don't even like heavy metal that much. I mean, like I like Metallica or Jethro Tull, or like classic kind of quote unquote metal, or Zeppelin,
Deep Purple and Black Sabbath.
I really like that kind of stuff. But I'm not a huge fan of anything after 95 or so. Screaming kind of metal as much, but
Slayer and
so, but I went just because they were friends and they'd gone to college, and basically it was, kind of debauchery. So I figured, I'm a tattoo artist, like this will be a great chance to go on the bus with them. And, each night we're going to be surrounded by people wanting to hang out with them, and they weren't a big band, but they were enough that they had fans in most big cities, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had just, you know, lots and lots of work each night. If I wanted to, there were 5 or 6 tattoos I could do.
Yeah.
But yeah, during that trip, you know, there were people that I'd meet that were like, you know, we had one guy that was like this 6'6" giant, like shaved head, always wearing leather and, you know, steel toe boots, and just, he was like a bouncer in Philadelphia at the time. But when he took mushrooms, we were out in nature, and he started crying, and he's like, it's just so beautiful. I just, the plants, I can feel them. They're connected to me. And, you know, like, I find it interesting that whether it's, you know, lots of intensive meditation in Buddhism, or even like the monks, I'm spacing on the name, in Christianity, the Gregorian monks, yeah, the ones who, you know, isolate themselves and chant and just focus all day. But there is this kind of universal human, like, other level experience that I think that you can get. But for me, like, I kind of get into it. I call it flow state, which, you know, is kind of a recognized term, but it's kind of that you're just going with things. And like when I'm working in an aquascape, or when I'm watching my fish, like, time just kind of ceases to exist. And for me, like, nature has always, some facet of it has always kind of sucked me in like that. And helped, you know. Like, no matter how stressed I am or what's going on.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Oh yeah, no.
It's like a common theme with a lot of people that I've interviewed, is that, well, first of all, a lot of us are broken in some way.
Totally.
And the fish tank hobby, fish keeping in general, has, you know, healed us in some ways. It's a very common thing among a lot of the people that I interviewed, that we all have these issues, that keeping fish or having plants in your house, you know, and bringing nature inside gives you that connection and heals you a little bit. So it's interesting that you're going there too. And I also used to live with a band. I wasn't a tattoo artist. I have no artistic skills at all, but I do. So I've been there as far as hanging out with a band every night and knowing what that life is like.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though that you asked if I was into Grateful Dead too, because my wife, she's 10 years older than me, so she was able to catch them. With my age, I would have been 11 when he died. So you know, it wasn't really an option to be into Jerry. I mean, I could have followed afterwards or whatever, but fish, you know, was more like that, a little bit more was my speed, I guess. But more, I was, but I was more into, I liked electronic music in high school quite a bit, like fusions of like 9 Inch Nails or Massive Attack, or kind of like ambient electronic music and mixed with dance music. But I've always loved, you know, it was from finding my dad's vinyls. My mom and dad were cleaning out the house when I was about 10. And I got my grandpa's old record player. He had a 45. And then he also had the old 78s. So I had both of his record players. And I was real close with my grandparents because my parents worked like nonstop when I was growing up. I didn't see them much. And so, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and my grandma and grandpa were really, my grandpa was real straight laced, but my grandma was really into jazz. So she got me like Howlin' Wolf, like records, and like, Ma Rainey, and like old, like jazz and New Orleans. Like some of it's pretty filthy, even by today's standards. You know, like some of the lyrics are like, I mean, people complain about Cardi B or whatever. And it's like, listen to some of the stuff from 1910, you know?
Yeah, it's porn. It is porn.
Yeah, seriously, it is. Yeah. And so I kind of got a taste of that from my grandma, and always kind of like thought that was interesting, that like when you're a kid, I think sometimes you think your generation's hardcore, and then there's kind of the realization that, oh, this has kind of all been done.
Yeah.
You know, every 40 or 50 years, the culture kind of does this. Like whether it was, you know, in the 1920s or the 1890s, or, you know, like it's just happened so many times where, you know, everyone says culture's falling apart and, you know, society's gonna, you know, collapse. And it never does. And then there's the conservative swing of, you know, we got to get back to our values.
And family values.
What does that ever mean? You know,
I'm a big Grateful Dead. Well, not as big as I used to be, but I did see the Grateful Dead a few times. And when Jerry was still alive, I saw him quite a few times in Arizona. Almost went on tour. You know, I had friends who did, and I almost did it. I sort of kick myself now that I didn't, you know, go on the road and follow them for a while. But definitely always a great show. And I do have some great, funny stories about some of the shows that I don't feel like is appropriate to share here. But,
yeah.
There's some great stories.
When I met my wife, she's pretty straight-laced now, but you can tell she's got a little bit of a hippie flair. But she's a lot more conservative now than me as far as what she puts out to the world. And when she met me, I was wearing like patchwork pants. I had hair to like here. And I'm like, hey, my job is tattooing. And I had an art gallery, you know? So like, basically I was a bum in her, you know, like not really. I mean, she respected that, but it wasn't like, I'm not going to marry that guy. You know what I mean? At first, but she was intrigued. But when I got to talking to her, I was like, oh, you know, what's your favorite band? And she's like, oh, the Grateful Dead. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Did you go see them ever? And she's like, yeah, I saw them a few times. And I was like, oh, cool. And then we kind of just dropped it. I didn't really get in, ask her. But later, we were at a table, and her friend referenced their 200th show. And I was like, what?
Wow.
I was like, most people haven't been to 200 concerts of anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she's seen Fish like 600 times, which Jesus. I was like, what?
I mean, I like Fish, but
yeah. She grew up in Ohio. And so it was just like her friend group, her brother and her sister all were into it. And they were a lot older, her siblings. And so she just kind of followed them along. And like every summer, they just, you know, at least half the tour she caught from age 14 to like into her mid 30s, you know, like
Did
definitely
she do the whole thing, like making tie-dyes to sell and all that kind of stuff too?
Yeah. I mean, I did that too. With my art, you know, like I guess I had a little more fine art, I guess if you call it that, because I had a gallery space in Seattle. But I'd load up a van or, you know, a car, and I'd of paintings, usually of nature stuff actually, and animals, with kind of a psychedelic pop art flair to it. And I'd load up stuff, and I made hemp necklaces with hand, you know, I'd go blow glass with friends, and you know, I wasn't that great at it, but you can make a okay looking pendant and put it on a, you know, hemp thing. And then I was into carving, so I was making like walking sticks and pipes and, you know, all sorts of the stuff you find on tour. It's
an interesting life though. I mean, living at the commune and stuff. You sound like you were born 20, 30 years too late. Or not, I know, later than you should have been. You know, you sort of have that old soul kind of 60s kind of, you know, because the communes really sort of petered out by the 70s, you know.
Yeah, so most people realize they don't work that well.
There's reasons, but Chartreuse Microbus. That is from Convoy. Chevy Fish said Chartreuse Microbus. That's from a country song called Convoy.
Yeah.
Chevy. Well, we've already been talking for an hour.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. I don't know what format you wanted to cover necessarily, but I mean, I was just having a good time chatting. So
that's all I wanted, was just to have a good time chatting. That's exactly what this is all about. Is just we learned a ton about you. Do you still have time? Are you?
Oh yeah. I don't have anything.
If you're okay with that, I'd like to open up to the chat.
Yeah, let's do that.
Have some people ask you some questions out of there and see. But this is all I like to do. I like to, you know, it was awesome to learn that you lived in a commune, to learn about your health issues. We've had, like I said, quite a few people that have been up. You are the 16th person. This is a 16th episode.
I didn't realize you've done that many. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was counting the other day. I was like, wow, it's 16 already. But quite a few. I would say at least half of the people have mentioned, fish tanks and nature being something that has saved their life or at least improved their quality of life. And I'm right there.
I have to say that when I started the channel, I didn't realize it. And then I about maybe 2 years in, I started getting letters and emails, like private ones, sometimes anonymous. Like I couldn't put the screen name and the email name together. I just I don't know who this is from.
Yeah.
But a lot of stories of I watch your channel. I don't want to really out myself, or sometimes they would, but there's so many people that have confided I was secretly drinking way too much for years, and I got an aquarium with my kids and now I'm on a good track, or I was in Iraq and I have PTSD, and I've heard, it seems like more than half probably of the people in the hobby, once you start talking, either had chronic pain, mental and emotional trauma, or an addiction.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us are. I use the term broken before, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But
I know what you mean.
It's amazing how I've only been keeping fish this time for about 9 months now. And my wife had said my quality of life had gone up. I'm much happier. Before that, I was having issues, and
same with me. My wife
back into it, and she says she sees a huge increase. So, all right, do you want to read questions out of the chat, or would you prefer me to read them to you? How do you want to do it?
Let's see. Let me pull up.
Whatever's easier for you.
So I can see the ones that are on StreamYard. I don't know if I'm missing any, but I mean, I can see the one, I see, Alex, are you still tattooing? Let's see here. And then after that, I don't see another question for a while. I can't scroll. Oh wait, never mind. I can scroll. So I think I might be missing some of the questions, like the equivalent of what do you call it? Not
top chat
live chat or versus top chat. Yeah. But I see the one, are you still tattooing? Yeah, if you could maybe read off if you see some that, I just don't have the actual computer. I have the StreamYard app up. So
okay.
But yeah, I am still tattooing, not legally. In Washington State, they changed the laws. You used to be able to freelance tattoo as long as your sterilization was good, and now you can't charge for it if you don't have a business license. You can't charge for it. You can't do it as a service in the sense of you can't advertise it, you can't have a business name, you can't file a business permit. So it's kind of you have to go all or nothing as a tattoo artist. And so I'm doing the nothing route, in that I give free tattoos to a few friends once in a while still. It really became an issue with my back pain and my with my degenerative disc issue. When you're tattooing for 4 or 5 hours on a sleeve or something, you keep one hand, you keep the skin taut like this, you keep it spread and taut, and then the other hand is very fine motor skills, and then you're kind of leaning over it, and so there's that. But then the other thing is that I had so much right here, you can see I get rashes and hives a lot. And so the bloodborne pathogen part of it, I just didn't want to expose myself anymore to the chances of, leaning on someone with that, them or me, so I kind of just got out of it, even though it was good money, and I enjoyed the challenge of a new thing to draw each day. And then, so yeah, but, so I still do it. I actually, a guy who married my wife and I, he's a lawyer. He lives down in Florida, and in June, I think, I'm flying down there. Florida doesn't have any laws about it. I mean, not that I'm not that the law in life keeps me from doing anything necessarily, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I try to be an upstanding citizen in a for the most part these days. But yeah, in Florida, I can literally like walk into a store and you can buy the gear and just like do it. So I'm going to be finishing up it's a fractal, a Mandelbrot fractal.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
On his back, and then a picture of him from when he was a kid and he's reaching up for the stars. So it's a back piece we started years ago, and he's like, I think it's his 56th birthday when I'm going. Hopefully in June I'll be there for his birthday. Nice. So I told him I'd finish, like, we've got probably 10 more hours on it. So
Stephen P 2003, who I know goes into your streams a lot, and Bentley's. One guppy for sale, comes with free tattoo.
Yeah.
it's something. And then Bottom Dweller said, you and your wife married the same guy? Because you said that just the way you phrased it did sort of sound like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not seeing a lot of questions. This actually happens quite often. I think we cover a lot of the stuff, or people are shy or just can't think of. It doesn't have to be some deep, question.
Yeah. I'm pretty much an open book too. So, I mean, nobody's going to offend me, like if it was something where I was like, I don't want to talk about that or whatever. I mean, I think people get that from me usually. Like people, because of that, I think also as a channel, it's been kind of interesting, like having to filter out. I do get some people who think that even though them and I have never had a conversation one-on-one, they think because I'm so open that I'm up to speed with what they're into, and they come with this crazy story, like 12-page email or something.
Wow.
And that happens pretty frequently.
Really?
Yeah, it really does.
Do you have an example that you can do without calling anybody out or anything? Is there something that I'm curious on?
There's been a few, but there was the most recent one that really surprised me was I had somebody that was, they said like, you and I are the same person. Like we have like the exact same life story, blah, blah, blah. And this was like a 22-year-old guy. And when I started talking to him, he like lives in the South, and he's a car repair mechanic. And I'm like, okay, where's he going with this?
Yeah.
He's like, we both love the same exact things. And like, he'd kind of keyed in on a few things, but like there was like not much the same about anything. But I was like, okay, well maybe this guy just needs to chat, and I if I have time I'll chat.
Yeah.
I'm always the kind of person where I like meeting people. I just like meeting new people. So
I was going to ask you that. Is that hard for you? I mean, I'm going to say you have a big channel. I mean, you're like 20,000 subs, right?
Yeah, it's getting there.
That's huge. So do you have a hard time with that part of it, where people just want so much of your time? Like what you're doing for me right here. This is you being cool and coming on here and benefiting my channel and letting me get to know you. People want a little chunk of your time all the time. Do you have a hard time managing that, or is it pretty manageable in your life?
I'm fortunate right now in that I work for myself, in that I'm an insomniac. And so there's certain people that like, if they're up at 3 a.m. and they're on, and I know that we're, like in a chat together, and they say, hey, can after this stream, you want to, like, can I talk to you about something? Like, there's plenty of people that, I've had several people now in the course of almost 5 years, coming up on 5 years this summer, that have actually confided, like, I don't want to live anymore. Like, I'm having that hard of a time. And I don't know why they chose to reach out to me. If they feel like they kind of know me and they don't have anyone to reach out to or whatever it may be. But I'm always there if it's something like that serious. Like, I'll always try to take the time. But my wife does kind of say sometimes, like, you can't solve everybody's problems. Like, stop attracting, like, I mean, if you go out online and say you can help anyone with their problems, like everyone with problems is going to come to you. But no, I mean, I've met a lot of really incredible people. So I don't like saying that, like, I don't like, you know, whatever, making fun of usually like the people who do reach out or put themselves out there to tell me something, or, you know, they send me something that's really cool. Like someone sent me some manzanita and then was telling me all about like where they found it, and then we started talking about their life, and you know, so there's stuff like that that happens. And I, you know, like Jason, who owns Redfish Bluefish, he was a viewer that I happened to run into at the fish store, and he's like, is this weird, like can I get your number maybe, like I'm new in town, you want to hang out maybe? And you know, I was like, no, it's not weird, you know, like he's like, he was from Texas, you know, and in the South it's a little more, you know, like you talk to your neighbors. In Seattle's not so much like that. It's kind of everybody's into their own world, their tech and their phone. I mean, the world's changing that way in general, I feel like, to some degree, but I'm just very anti that way. Like when I go to the store, I say hi to people, and like in Seattle, I'm a native of Seattle, but there's a thing called the Seattle freeze, they call it. And it's about people kind of ignoring you if they don't know you already, or being cliquey in their groups. But yeah, in general, if I go to the gas station, for instance, or the grocery store, I say hi to, you know, everybody in the parking lot on the way there, whether they're homeless or in a suit, you know. So I just think people are endlessly fascinating. So and
you know what, those little things though, like that, those little things, you smiling at somebody and saying hi can make somebody's day. You just don't know what they're dealing with, and so just by smiling at somebody, you could totally change their day. So we all could do that a little more often.
Yeah, and you know, that's it's really true. Like I did one episode 2 or 3 years ago where I invited like that there had been a time in my life where I had tried to kill myself, and you know, I'd been very on a lot of different substances and drinking, and didn't, you know, I've been broken up with someone I was engaged to, and really just really dark place in my life. And because of that episode, every few months I still get someone who finds the episode, even though it's unlisted. Like it's like Google hid it because of the language, and when you talk about certain things, they just like blacklist you. But I'll get a message about it, like, hey, I saw your video and I just want you to know that like I didn't, like, I felt less alone that night, so thank you. And like even one person doing that, like it makes it like worth whatever embarrassment or whatever in the past I would have felt about sharing it. It's like now I feel like my life is not just mine. It's like I'm interconnected to all society, essentially all people, and that if there's anything that they can glean or benefit from a story, great. And same with me, like I'm going to take what I can from everyone else's story too, you know, like
we are all interconnected. People forget that, you know, they just everybody wants to be on their own little islands, but you can't. We're all interconnected. We all, you know, we all have to live together, and we could do a much better job.
Well, I find it funny about like the masks too. Like everyone, I hear all of a sudden a complaint from a lot of people that normally couldn't care less about their neighbor, saying like, I don't like the mask, I feel so isolated. And then, you know, and it's like, you weren't going to talk to that homeless person at the gas station, like if it weren't for the mask, or you weren't going to go say hi to the teenagers skateboarding down the street, you know, like, or whatever. So, but I think there is a part of us that's realized, like with this whole thing, like, oh wow, I do need people, to whatever degree that is true for you. Like me, I'm a big hugger. Like all my friends that I'm close with, like know me for big hugs. Like, I mean, I may not look like it, but you know, I'm 260 pounds right now because I'm fat right now. But I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, and so
I'm right with you. We're like identical.
So, well, sorry to call you fat. I didn't mean.
No, that's great. It is what it is.
But I've kind of always just been seen as kind of a teddy bear by my friends. So it's for that reason.
I've that's me too. Cuddly is what I've usually described as.
Yeah,
believe that by looking at me, but so we got a couple of questions here.
Okay, there we go.
What is the #1 country you'd like to go to that you haven't been to yet?
Myanmar, I think.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Myanmar. looking less and less likely.
Yeah.
This
Until
week,
something
even.
changes.
Last night, by the way, it looks like they killed around 200 civilians, the military. And last night, what changed also, I saw from 2 subscribers that are living there that asked not to put their information online for their own safety.
Gotcha.
Because they're like, I'm not political, but I'll let you know what I'm seeing. But there's somebody who lives near Lake Inle there who's a biologist who watches the channel, and I won't say they're from the area, so it's not giving it away. They're not a foreigner, but they were saying that last night 3 police stations they threw grenades. The local ethnic groups that hadn't been involved in this rebellion yet at all have joined the people, and they threw explosives into police stations run by the military, which is a giant turning point. Like that turns this into a civil war. I mean, that's a military faction with 20,000 like armed soldiers ready to do whatever the leader says. And so that literally changed overnight. And
how many people live in the country? Do you know, just off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's quite a few. Live in like Yangon or Rangoon and Mandalay, big cities.
Mandalay I know is massive.
Yeah, I want to say Rangoon has like, I don't know, 8 million or something crazy like that too.
I did see your post, requesting information from your subs.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to it and read it. Looks like it's about 53.75 million. 53 million.
That's a lot considering it's like smaller than California.
Yeah, it's not that big. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the biodiversity there is just incredible, and Lake Inle and the Shan River Basin. The reason the Congo, pretty much everywhere but like Papua New Guinea, the reason those places have so much to show us still of species is because of conflict. Honestly, there's a lot of places in Africa, a few in Central America and South America, and then some in Southeast Asia. And Indonesia and Philippines that really have been at war since like the 60s, like off and on, just unstable. And so biologists just haven't wanted to go catalog everything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, people don't realize it, but Celestio pearl danios, erythromycin, the emerald dwarf rasboras, pandagaras, rufagaras, about 50 species of other danios, the Chopra danio, the glow light danio. A lot of those are, or at least some of the new subspecies of them, the rummy nose rasbora, those are all found in 2006 to 2007 in an expedition to the Shan Basin. So there's still a lot of fish that we just don't know. The other thing about fish is, like, for instance, the one I'm really into right now is my little micro goby dragons, the Taiwanese. And I was like, how did they only officially document this Taiwanese micro dragon in 2017? Like, Taiwan is a very modern island.
Yeah.
And it's an island. I mean, like someone saw it, right? And it turns out it's just a case of it was a little fish, and they knew it was there, the locals, but they don't eat it. They don't need it in a way that is like logically like, oh, we need that for some reason. So it was just assumed that somebody somewhere had gotten around to it, basically. And then when they started looking into it, they're like, oh, wow, there's like 12 species all over the islands in Southeast Asia. And they're all a little bit different. So I think that there's probably a lot of cases of like, if you really took a deep exploration with a fish expert or reptile or insect. I mean, with insects, they figure most insects haven't been named yet, or haven't been, the taxonomy hasn't been listed yet.
Yeah.
And it's that way. Like, so I've been really into mycology and mushrooms. And when I started 18 years ago, when I started picking mushrooms, it was literally like you'd get the group, and then it was just like variant, and that was all any guidebook or scientific paper says. But now with the cost of sequencing, genetics going way down, it's been like incredible, and we've been able to name all these species. Like there's 7 mushrooms that were assumed to be one species in the Seattle area that I was looking at and working on and giving samples to the University of Washington, because I'd see them, and I'd see some and they'd be like super wavy, and others would have a perfect conical shape, and others would have be one color tan, and others would be another. And so I just said, I don't think these are the same thing. I mean, I just don't think anyone's paying attention. So it's amazing how much nature there still is that's just might have a place marker as the name, but it hasn't been really looked at thoroughly.
And that's fascinating to me, that you're that in tuned with it, that you can see all those different types of mushrooms and things like that. That's just fascinating.
Mushrooms are a hobby that I got into for a while.
I knew you went out and took people out to mushroom picking and stuff, like what's her first name? Bentley is her last name.
Oh, Alyssa.
Yeah, Alyssa. I drew a blank.
Yeah, I love Alyssa.
I know you took her out mushroom picking. Oh, and you also did a really cool little video. Mushrooms are barely even involved, but you took us to it must have been at your other house. It was like a local park that they had reclaimed. Oh yeah. I love that one. That was because I go on these guided tours with like our Audubon Center and some in the area, and that's totally what it reminded me of. Was I was on one of these. I love those trips. I do them as often as I can.
I've thought about starting a second channel for that. Like, I mean, I've thought about keeping it on this channel too, but I mean, I like to tell people that, like, yes, I love the aquarium thing, and it's easy to show an aquarium when you're at the house with the camera. Yeah. But if I were able to make content, both money, time, and travel wise, like, I would be out in nature. That's where all my videos would be. You know what I mean?
I would watch those. You do have a great way of presenting it. And you know what I also like is that your videos aren't highly edited.
No, that was a big choice. Yeah, I
like it. Because I am the same way. I don't like to edit the stuff. It's not that I don't like to edit. It's I like the realness of it. As sometimes you're struggling for that word, or you're using a lot or whatever. It's not edited out. You're just because it's more like a conversation between you and me, as opposed to you're just giving me a lecture. And I'd rather have a conversation than a lecture.
Well, and that's kind of like in my head, I've struggled with that. Like, could I get a lot more subscribers and views if I had like nice graphics sliding in and a perfect shotgun mic or, whatever. Yes, I'm sure. And if I tailored my stuff to like top 10 fish that can rip apart a goldfish in a second or whatever, I know the stuff that people would click on, or like, the thing you don't, whatever, the reason all your fish die, that, or whatever the solution.
Oh no, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You'll never believe, or my truth, or, stuff like that. And usually I refrain from it. There's once in a while I kind of toy with it, but it's for me, I'm the same way where like I learn best when I'm just chatting with someone who's enthusiastic about something. Yes. Even if it's not something I like just seeing them excited about it, sometimes gets me into it. It's like that parasocial thing. And I kind of decided at one point, like, I either should edit my videos and do a clean job, and it can be like a program essentially, or it's more of like what you'd call a vlog. Like, it's a diary almost like that. I started the channel as I'm learning because I got back into the hobby when I was starting the channel again. And I had knowledge from keeping fish like 3 different rounds, and then I'd live somewhere where they're like, you can't have any tanks. And so or I'd go on the road for 6 months, some things like that put a hold on my fish keeping. But it really wasn't, I didn't aquascape per se. until this last 6-year bout that I've been keeping now for. And so this last 6 years is when I got back into it, and the hobby had changed a ton compared to any other time. Otherwise, it'd been kind of stagnant since the 70s, really. I mean, the 70s to the 90s in fresh water was pretty stagnant in the mainstream. You kind of had your like bread and butter fish and plastic plants and bright gravels and hang off the back filters. I mean, the switch from under gravel to hang off the back filter is not that revolutionary, not that exciting compared to when you talk about like not having a filter at all and having plants and, you know, the plants changed the game for me. Yeah.
Same here. And again, I interrupted you. So I
no, that's great. It's fine.
But, you know, so I kept them in the late 60s, early 70s. I had fish tanks, and the only plant we ever had was Elodia or or whatever, you know. That was it, because it was just, at least where I lived in Arizona at the time, that's the only stuff that was available. Oh no, that was actually Chicago. But anyways, that was the only stuff you could ever find, because nobody had these big expensive lights and stuff. So that was the only plant, a real plant I ever had. And then when I came back to the hobby, you know, 8 months, 9 months ago, I was just amazed at the sheer.
Yeah.
And I'm hooked. I have tons of plants and all. I like the plants just as much as the fish. You know, it's a whole nother level to the hobby. You know what? I hate to do this, but I know Diego goes live at 8 o'clock. Can somebody check and see if Diego is live? I don't want to go over him. Because otherwise, we could. If Diego's not live and you're up for it, I could keep talking. This is
I mean, whatever. I want to be respectful too, but I don't. I'm free until my wife gets home, and then I'm free until she tells me I'm not. So
I get that. My wife is doing homework tonight, so I'm free. So yeah, if somebody, Mike or Big M or anybody can tell me if Diego is live. I don't want to go over him. If he's not going to go live tonight, then we'll go ahead and keep going. So what made you come back to the hobby? This is probably the question everybody gets asked. So you said you were away from it the longest time. What really made you come back to the hobby?
That's a little tricky. I don't know. Well, what sparked it, honestly, was my wife wanted a dog. I'm really allergic to dogs. I love all animals, honestly. But I'm allergic to dogs, and she wanted a boxer, and I'm really allergic to boxers. So I was like, okay, well, let's look at smaller dogs. And then it turned into, actually, I seem to be allergic to every dog that we're seeing. I hadn't been around dogs in a while, even though I had them growing up and stuff. And I was like, well, what about a cat? And she's like, I don't want cats. And then it turned into like, well, if we can't have a snuggly animal, like, well, what do we want? Like, she's like, what am I supposed to do? House plants? And in the Northwest here, it's really depressing in the winter if you're not used to it. You know, it's 8 months of gloom and gray. Yeah. And she lived in Ohio, and then she lived for 10 or 15 years in Florida. And so coming here she still hates the summer. She's been here 15 years and she still can't take the winters. I mean, she can't take them. So by around January or February, I mean, she's seriously depressed and in a bad mood and like has to go travel somewhere. Yeah. So like 6 or 7 years ago, we went to the doctor and was like, what can we do? Vitamin D, one of those little happy lights that's UVA, UVB. And so he said, yeah, you know, take the vitamin D, and get one of these lights. And he wrote a prescription for the light. Wow. And I was like, okay, well, how much? And it's common up here in the Northwest because, you know, people don't realize it, but we're farther north than Maine. If you look on the map, like where Seattle is, like we're the farthest north capital in the country, other than Alaska, obviously. Olympia is the farthest northern capital, farthest north state capital. And so she was like, okay, well, I need to get this lamp. And it was like $500. And I was like, No, like I used to grow. We'll get some grow lights and put those in the living room if we have to. And then I looked into it and I was flipping through. I don't know what it was. I think it was just that I had Googled grow lights. So I saw some ad for plant like aquatic plant lights, and like I think it was Fluval or Twin Star or something like that. And then I was like, huh. So then I was like, I wonder if this would work, and then I could have fish again, because I've always liked fish. But she was like, you know, we're renting, and I don't want if it leaks, and it's just a whole thing. But I kind of weaseled my way in by we got 2 tanks for the price of 1 light. You know, 2 tank setups, 2 20 longs with LED lights. And I did some work trade for Steve Waldron, who owns aquariums, and he also writes for Amazonas Magazine and does a bunch of other stuff in the hobby. But yeah, so he was able to kind of set me up with some pretty nice used equipment. And then shortly after that, I had to quit my job because of my my lupus. I was working for Trader Joe's doing murals. And so my work was going store to store or standing all day and writing in chalk or spray paint or whatever up against a surface and looking up. And it just was killing my neck and back, coming home in tears, you know. And so then also they had me on register, which is a lot of twisting and bending for when you've got back problems. So I said, I got to figure something else out. And right around that time, Steve was like, hey, I'll teach you how to aquascape if you work in the shop, you know. So it kind of turned into, and then my wife got a promotion and was able to kind of support us a little bit more than she, had been before. And so she kind of, I mean, I'm really thankful for that she was able to do that, because that let me, that was the start of it. But when I started YouTube, I was doing my art gallery I was painting probably 40 or 50 hours a week.
Wow.
And I was making a lot of art in Seattle for the tourist trade. So like lots of Space Needles, and lots of sailboats and lighthouses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's the stuff that like has no soul in it, and I hated doing, but it would just sell reliably for like $300, one every few days or whatever. Yeah. So I did that, and I did a lot of woodblock carving and printing. And she kind of took over the fallback money, as it were. We didn't have any kids or anything. So that was really amazing that she supported me in that. And that was kind of her inner hippie deadhead being like, you go for it. Like, I'm going to do the corporate thing. I'd rather have the money and play on the weekends. Yeah. And not, cause it is a grind to try to live by your own.
It is.
Like it's way easier, effort wise, I would say, to work for someone else, and do whatever it is. But for me, I'd rather work 80 or 90 hours a week for myself, than for anyone else. So it's easier for me to work 80 hours for me than 20 hours for someone I don't like or don't want to do, not passionate about. So
passionate. That's what I was going to say. Passionate. Something you're not passionate about.
And luckily, I mean, I've been passionate about a lot of different things, so I've hopped around hobbies,
Yeah. And a lot of your hobbies, you can make money on. My hobbies, I really can't make money on, at least not legally.
Yeah.
So everybody said Diego is not going.
Okay.
But does anybody else? I think Diego is the only one on Tuesday nights until 9:00 when Bentley goes. So if anybody sees somebody, just let me know, please. I hate going over people when I can help it.
Is the other one that I wasn't sure of is Fishroom Fever when he goes?
He goes on Thursday nights, Thursdays and Saturdays.
Just Thursday? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Thursdays and Saturdays. Yep.
I couldn't remember which ones he was on.
So that was a long story about how you got back into it. I like that.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm like,
no, don't be sorry.
I
That's
thought
what I like.
I thought I was like killing time until we found out if that guy, if Diego was still up or whatever.
It's a very winding story, but it all is important. There wasn't any part of it that wasn't important to get us to the destination. So
I'm too wordy. I definitely need to work on that. But at the same time, there are some people who are like, I'm bored. I want to I mean, or like to me, like there's a podcast like Stuff You Should Know. I don't know if you ever listened to that.
No, I don't do podcasts at all. I can't do them for some reason.
Like it's just banter between two guys. Like, I mean, and they cover a topic, but they just get so off topic a lot. And to me, it's part of what's endearing about it. Like I want to feel like I could hop right in and just join the chat. You know what I mean? And so I guess I've kind of I've beat myself up about it, and I've been like, oh well, I don't want to be so off subject and waffly, but at the same time, like some of my favorite things, that they are just a laid back conversation about, whatever, sometimes you might need to learn about.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, sometimes you might need to learn about some crazy story that, you never know when as long as it's not totally frivolous, you never know when you're going to use something like, oh, this is, my car broke down and I fixed it by using this or that. It's like, what does that have to do with anything you're talking about on your show today? I don't know. Maybe it'll help someone in a pinch when their car breaks down or something. You know what I mean? So if you remember things in your life and you pay attention, it's like you never know where you're going to pick up something that is a piece that connects, and you're like, oh yeah.
Our Monday night stream with Ed and I, we call it the Geek Out, but we talk about comic books and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. But there's no plan. We talk for sometimes 2 or 3 hours, and there's no plan. It's just whatever comes out, and we go wherever it takes us, and I absolutely love doing it. It's so much fun. So I like people that are a little more verbose. And I had one guest, and he's a friend of mine, Jesse from JN Aquatics. He's Canadian. He does. He's doing a lot of. I haven't seen him in a while. He hasn't been around much, but he really got me because I asked him. I said, "So what got you into fish keeping?" And he said, "I bought a fish tank." That's where he stopped, and I'm like, well, then he laughed, and he was just messing with me, and then he went on and expanded, but he didn't do it at first, and I was like, you son of a bitch, he's just gonna leave me hanging, Yeah, I bought a fish tank. Well, no shit, that's where that's. Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of like, I could have told the story that way. Like, I bought a fish tank for my wife. She doesn't like fish, but she needed the light.
Yeah.
The end.
And that makes no sense. But you expanded and made it into a way that did make sense. And how does she feel about the tanks now? Is she come around with them? Is she? She
still doesn't really care that much about the fish for the most part, but she loves the light and the energy, or the I don't know what you call it, the aura, whatever you want to call it, that life force of water trickling and plants and just movement in the corner that's not like digital or TV related, it's just life. It's just energy and nature in the house. We like that.
Did she ever get one of those lights that she needed?
I mean, my grow lights literally were the same. Like I looked at the specs, and a good grow light covers the same ground. So it's like, oh, well, okay, let's just do that. Granted, she's supposed to. Yeah, she does.
Okay, good.
At least she feels less. The last few years, she hasn't gotten so down. She's also been keeping up with the vitamin D, which is big up here. I've always had vitamin D that's like on the chart. It's like you're dead or whatever level it is, but I've always been so fair skinned that also, the lighter skinned you are, the less you, the easier it is for you to get it when you need it, but you don't need as much either. Like the populations in Northern Europe evolved to need less of it, Gotcha. Whereas like a lot of people, if they move Like I have friends who are, for instance, like sub-Saharan African. And when they've moved here from, say, California, like LA or something, people I've met that I've worked with and things, they're just feeling it. They're like, man, I have no energy. And, you know, and it turns out, oh, needed to go tanning or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I get it
too.
Yeah.
I do.
And I mean, like New York and other places, like New York City gets more rain amount than we do. It's just we get a lot of foggy, gray days for a lot of the year.
You know, I lived in Arizona for a lot of my life, and then we moved up here where my wife
What part?
Right around Phoenix, Tempe, Chandler.
Okay, yeah.
East side. East side. But I lived there for most of my life, and then we moved up here where my wife is from. We met out there and got married out there and moved up here where she's from originally. And I still have issues with it, you know, because I did construction work. That was my last job I, you know, had in Arizona was my IT contract ended. So I did construction work for 6 months. So I'm out in the sun all day long.
Wow.
Super tan, but
yeah.
Then I moved up here and we have the same thing. It's, you know, 6 months of winter, especially because we're right on the lake. So it really, you know, makes an effect in this time of the year. And it is tough. And actually this light that's here that's shining on my face that I use for YouTube is one of those lights that, in fact, it's about to turn off because it's a timer. It is one of those sun lights. It's called a Sun Touch Plus. I don't remember how much it was. It made a huge, huge difference.
They have some less expensive ones than I mean, especially
$50.
Yeah, like 8 years ago, there were some less expensive ones, but they definitely weren't as good.
Yeah.
But now I've noticed the last 5 years in general, like literally, the technology's come down probably a quarter from the price it was, and it's actually the wavelengths that you need. You know.
Yeah.
LED technology has come leaps and bounds in 20 years. It's insane, you know.
Yeah. And doing the vitamin D and using this light really, I mean, a lot of people have that, you know, the seasonal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it really did. It made a huge difference. I felt way better using it. I use it in the wintertime, I use it for an hour every day in the morning because I sit right here in my office and my mood was elevated greatly by it. So anybody who's looking for one, again, I think it was Amazon,
nice.
Sun Touch Plus, and that's like $50. So
yeah, that's great. I mean,
you know what? I think we're gonna kill it here. We're about 20 after 8. 52 people came in to see you. That's
right
awesome.
on. Thanks for coming by, everybody, and screw you all for not asking questions. No, I'm just kidding.
I know we didn't get too many. No. And I hope, you know what, let's give it like 2 or 3 more minutes because I want to see if anybody had a question that I just missed. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes for that, just in case. But again, I appreciate you being here, Alex. Thanks for having me. Enjoy watching your channel so much. There's a handful of channels. I watch pretty much everybody out there, all the fish fam. I try to watch everything I can. But there's a handful of channels that just Fish Room Fever is one of my favorites. Bentley. You know, I just have those dozen or so that are just I don't know. You guys have taught me so much about how to keep my fish and my plants and stuff over the last 8 months that I just can't say thank you enough for everything you do.
Well, it makes me really, really delighted to hear that. I mean, because I needed that in the start, and there were resources online. Honestly, some of the early aquarium co-op videos were really, really, really good. Like his 2-hour streams and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But I think yet again, he gets to the point where 1, he's running a business, and 2, he just, there's too many people that are all getting into it, that are asking questions that are kind of entry-level questions. And so I was kind of like, well, we need some channels that are like, okay, I figured out like the bare essentials. Tell me about like, you know, some of the more in-depth or more specific stuff.
Yeah, or more advanced.
That's like, because that's where I'm lost. Like, you know, like CO2, like I don't think he's ever gone into that, you know, really like what that, how to you know, use that. And that was something where like I heard so many different answers, and the forums are just kind of hard to navigate in my opinion sometimes. Like I kind of do have a special place in my heart for forums, but they can be hard because you a lot of people sound authoritative and they're saying exact opposite things. So you're like, I don't know who's right, you know.
And plus, when you're in a format like this, you get the body language. You know, you can really It's such a better format, and I like the channels that do the live streams. I mean, sometimes you've got 150, 200 people or more in your streams.
Yeah.
You know, you're right on the edge, I think, of getting to that where it's hard to manage.
Yeah.
But you can still have a conversation. So I still like it. I watch the co-op streams, but I don't ever talk in them because, just like you said,
there's no point. Yeah.
So we did have a question here from the other Tiffany, and she's a worker. Alex, do you ever wish you could move to a different state? Would it affect your fish keeping?
Oh yeah. If I could live somewhere warmer, I would have lots of outdoor tubs. I'm starting to get into learning more about the fish that live here. The problem is that in Washington, the water out in the Puget Sound or even in the creeks and things, it doesn't get above 60 degrees max. You know, it's 40 to 50 degrees all year round in any big river or any saltwater. And that's cold. Like you need a chiller on your tank to replicate that for fish. There are warm water lake species like bass and sunfish and catfish that you can have in a cold tank. I mean, a heated tank would probably kill a lot of them, but you need like a lot of oxygen. They also get really big. There aren't that many nano species that don't need like raging river, high oxygen and cold temperatures and algae or something, you know, which are just that makes it really, really difficult to keep them, you know, like it's hard to keep trout in an aquarium, for instance. So I just kind of ignored it, but there are a lot of interesting little sculpins and darters and dace and like sunfish you can keep up here even. And the farther you go south in the United States, just the more that the species open up. I mean, when you get to Texas, Louisiana, Florida Panhandle down into Florida, I mean, there's hundreds of species you can keep that are native, you know, that will do okay in an aquarium. And there's obviously you can keep, you know, Amazon species in Florida or LA or San Diego for most of the year, if not the entire year. So that would change things.
I would love to do. I'm going to do summer tubbing this year, but I'm going to have to use a heater because it's the same thing. It stays cold. But I can't remember where he's at. Brandon from Maple Street Aquatics. He does a lot of native stuff, and I don't think he's in. I want to say he's like Ohio or something.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat knows, or
I can't remember. Like I was gonna say Iowa when you said Ohio, so but I don't know. I can't
remember where he's at. There's also Dan Hitshu. He's in actually Baltimore. Oh, Daniken said he's in Indiana. Okay.
Indiana. Okay. Yeah.
And then Dan Hitshu is in Baltimore, Maryland, and he does a lot of native stuff too. He's got some native tanks. It's just so fascinating to look at those, and I really want to. I mean, because again, we live right on Lake Ontario. I went out today and just looked at the shore just to see what was around. You know, I want to see when the plants start coming back in, and you know, I collect stones and wood and stuff. And,
I do that stuff too.
There's really not much yet because the ice just broke up a few weeks ago. But I did pull some. What is it called? Pondweed.
Like anacris or
no? It's called something pondweed, and I'm drawing a blank on the name. It's a stalk plant. It's got,
milfoil or
no. It's got like longer leaves and they're a little curly and little curled up on the edges.
Hi, honey.
Cool.
Valsinaria? No. I'm trying to think.
Crispus or something like that.
Crinum?
Pondweed. Hold on, I'll find it.
Okay. There's so many plants, it's hard to know. I'm like Crinum calosmistranum.
Curly leafed pondweed.
Okay.
Potamogeton crispus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
a
always
cool looking plant, and I guess it does well. I'm actually soaking it right now. I did a peroxide dip, and I'm soaking it. I'm gonna see how it does.
the boss just got home.
Hi, boss.
No, I've gotten some of my favorite plants from even just cold water. You kind of have to transition some of them if it's real cold, but like I have some plants that are considered invasive that are just is there another bag? Okay, that are I mean just incredible, like what's it called, Hygrophila polysperma sunset. That plant is beautiful, and you're not really supposed to have it, but if it finds its way onto your boat or on your property, it's legal, but you can't knowingly buy, sell, or move it.
Yeah, we have sort of the same type of thing. If something washes up on the high tide marker, I can pick it up regardless of what it is. I can have it by law because it's our property. So I can take it then, but I can't. I'm not even supposed to go out and collect most of the plants.
It's funny that you say that, because in our state we have 17 species of psychedelic mushrooms that are felonies to possess.
Yeah.
But they had to change the law because they literally pop up like growing at police stations or playgrounds. And I mean, they're native. What are you going to do? Yeah. There's 17 species.
Yeah.
So they had to change that law to something similar. Like, as long as you don't knowingly dry or consume or buy, sell, or transport, if it appears on your property, then it's okay.
Nature finds a way.
I know. It's like trying to legislate nature can get pretty tricky.
All right.
All right. Yeah.
I think this is a good time. Besides, your wife's home, so that's great. Again, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
It was a blast. And maybe we can have you again in like another 8 months or so and see what things happen. And keep it up with what you're doing. I love what you're doing, and again, you're up there among my favorite YouTube channels. So
thank you.
Going.
Other thing I wanted to do, but I got a strike last time I did it, was I played an album and just filmed one tank, like kind of slowly panning while I just played a favorite album and made a little few comments here and there if something really extraordinary was going on. But I got hit with a copyright thing, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just take the money and give it to the recording industry, which I don't care about. That's fine.
Sure.
But knowing the difference between what song's going to get you nailed and you can get banned forever, with a few of those. But that was something I enjoyed, and that I miss putting on, like, I did surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane. And then I did Blind Faith's album too.
Oh yeah.
And it was the Blind Faith album that Eric Clapton people hit me. So
and that's amazing to me, because take the money, like you said, they're just getting money, so they're cutting off one of their own revenue streams.
I know, it's people clearly like them if they're doing it, and it's like if you literally, I mean, like, even if you use a snippet of their song, they can take your whole, all your money from your video. So it's like, it's just funny to me that why wouldn't they just take the money? I mean, I guess they don't. I mean, it should be obvious that clearly Eric Clapton doesn't endorse my channel. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just, it's in the public sphere now, like his music. So but in any case, that's one thing I miss, and I want to figure out how to do those again, because I had a good time, and so did, like, I think Chevy and a few other people, that are really into music. It was a very niche thing. It didn't get a ton of views, but we had a good time doing those.
And that definitely would be something I'd be up for. I would definitely get into that if you figure out a way.
Yeah, I'll look into it more.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks.
Everybody, thanks so much for being here. Look at that. We have 55 likes and 51 people watching for such a tiny channel. That's amazing, and I really appreciate every one of you. And Alex, thanks for making it happen.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun. You should come on my channel too.
Anytime. I'm. That's what I keep telling people. Anybody that wants me up, again, I don't have a lot of fish knowledge. I've been keeping quite a few different species and stuff, and I'm having success, but I don't have a lot of fish knowledge. So if you want to talk about other stuff, I can tell you what I'm keeping, but I can't tell you if I'm keeping it right.
Well, I mean, everybody has a different way of doing things, and in the end,
Yeah.
whatever works for you. I mean, I've seen people that are doing stuff, and I'm like, your fish are going to be dead, but it works out, you know. And I don't know how sometimes, but whatever does work for you. There's definitely some less stressful ways to do things, but whatever works for you in the end is what's good. So,
and it seems to be. I mean, I had one heater malfunction that I learned from, and now I have heater control because I have to use heaters. But I have heater controllers on all the tanks now, so I won't cook any more fish. But other than that, I haven't lost anything. So
yeah. Well, good. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and thank you, Rico. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll see everybody. We have a special Saturday stream this week, same time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Peter Guppy Guru is going to join us.
Oh, cool.
So, don't miss out on that, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.